Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of Independent Thought. My name is Desmond Price, and I am joined today by our guest, Mr. Daniel Carlino. Daniel, how are you doing today? Welcome back to Independent Thought.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Desmond. It's always a pleasure getting to share my thoughts about all these things and having a good day so far myself. We're pretty deep into the city council campaign, so it's exciting as the days go by to see us get closer.
Absolutely. And, for those who might be unfamiliar, Daniel Carlino is running for Missoula City Council out of Ward 3. He was on the podcast about 6 months ago to talk about his campaign, but I welcomed him back to the podcast now because a lot can change in 6 months on the campaign trail. And so I kind of wanted to check back in with him right before the elections coming up here. The voting for the election starts next month, I believe October 2nd. Is that correct?
Yep, yeah. Anybody can vote October 4th through November
4th.
2nd, any day in there. Yep.
Okay, so with that being said, if you are a Missoula resident, like this episode is primarily for you. So we're going to start off and asking some questions here with our candidate. So first things first, I kind of just want to check in with you a little bit. For those who are probably already did listen to the first time that you came on about 6 months ago, we talked about your campaign and what you were running on as far as what your platform is, but has anything changed over the last 6 months as far as, just after you've been talking to people, knocking door to door? Like, what's changed for you specifically over the last 6 months campaigning here in Missoula?
Yeah. Well, when I started this campaign, I was living with a couple family members, two of my brothers in town, and a couple other roommates. And we knew that like housing in Missoula is the number one issue facing our community, with people trying to find somewhere to live and also find somewhere affordable. And like in that time, I've got kicked out of my house myself and had to scramble to try and find a new place in town. And it's been pretty much impossible, but I luckily was able to find a place through some friends. But just like experiencing the housing crisis that we're all experiencing in Missoula firsthand was a lot of stress and anxiety through that process for me. But between now and then, we've knocked every door in the district twice already. So we've talked to thousands of Missoulians and just have like really heard back from everybody in our community. And it seems to be, yeah, that housing is still the number one issue, and people struggling to try and get their basic needs met in Missoula as the housing and rental prices are getting jacked up day by day. I hear more and more Missoulian stories of them getting evicted or their rent got bumped up so much that they had to leave town. And that's really been a hot issue in our community, along with many others. But it's been a great time campaigning, getting to talk to so many people. But it's also been an odd time campaigning during the COVID pandemic still, because we haven't done any events or large like public speaking or large groups. So that's been an interesting part of trying to campaign still during the pandemic.
Right. No, I can imagine that. It is a very tumultuous time. There's some people who are trying to get back to normal. There are some people who, very much acknowledge that we're still in a pandemic. And, all that being said, the issues that, exist, have been kind of like ongoing, between now and like even like 6 months ago when we first spoke and even prior to that. And number one issue, as you said before, is housing. I mean, everyone who I talk to in this community, when they think about politics of any sort, is what are they going to do about housing? Like, what are our elected leaders going to do about housing? And people are frustrated and they are concerned and they're not sure what they can do. So now I want to ask you directly. I know that I asked you this question before, but now that you've had some extra time on the campaign trail, what are your plans specifically for how you want to address the housing issue if you were to be elected to the city council?
Yeah, thanks, Desmond. So, I mean, I believe that housing should be viewed as a human right, along with other basic needs for people in our community. And we're not going to make sure that everybody has access to secure, affordable housing if we allow this same free market system to continue the way it has been. So I believe in putting regulations around for housing through policies. And a couple off the bat is we need to ensure that when the city is allowing housing developments on city land, that we set aside a large portion, um, as much as we can negotiate, but maybe 50% of all housing developments on city land need to be set aside for permanently affordable units for low income Missoulians. So we need to force the market to supply affordable housing, or else it's just not going to happen at the scale that we need it to. Um, and for renters, we need to do a universal background check and rental application fee system. So instead of as a renter paying $50 every place you want to apply to, it can be made to where you can just pay one fee, and then you can apply everywhere that you need to until you find a place to live. So we're going to be pushing that. The Airbnbs and vacation rentals are starting to be studied more in Missoula between the past few months, and there's predicted over 3% of houses or doors or apartments, houses, etc. in Missoula are Airbnbs or vacation rentals. And the vacancy rate in Missoula is 0.3%. So we have about 10 times the amount of Airbnbs and vacation rentals than vacant homes in Missoula. So I'm going to be pushing for regulations on Airbnbs and vacation rentals to try and limit the number allowed in each Missoula neighborhood before our town turns into a place where it's only a vacation town, or Missoula is only a place where you have to be super wealthy to live here. We need to start regulating our housing market and not let it continue out of control.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that, because one of the byproducts of housing prices getting out of control is that, well, unfortunately, people, lose their homes, and then we are now seeing an exploding amount of people who just cannot afford to live in this community. And then some people end up becoming houseless. And so we are now seeing, more and more people becoming homeless. And there has been a lot of discussions in the community about what should be done about that. We've seen some we've seen some instances where the police have kind of gone around town and kind of taken out different pieces, like different shelters that people were living at. Uh, this concerns me, like, as a citizen
Yeah.
here in Missoula. I don't know exactly what should be done, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, what do you think, like, we should be doing differently to helping our houseless neighbors here in Missoula?
Yeah, I completely disagree with the city's approach of trying to hide homelessness from our community by putting little spikes on park benches, or by sending police to um, make sure everybody leaves encampment areas. Out of sight and out of mind is just not going to solve homelessness. What we do need is wraparound services that includes providing secure housing first, long-term housing, at least until people can get back onto their feet. And along with the housing shelters, we need to have drug treatment centers, therapy on site, housing advocates that can help people find permanent housing and find jobs that work well for them. And we need mental health services. It's going to take all of these different wraparound services together to ensure that people can work their way out of homelessness, and also just are provided with a safe place in the meantime as well. A couple things that we're proposing in particular in the short-term solutions is trying to create a safe parking area in Missoula where people that are living in their cars can park, have showers, bathrooms, their basic amenities there. We're also need to, the city of Missoula and county have received $42 million in COVID relief funds from the federal government, and we need to get that out to people in need as soon as possible. They've been sitting on it for a few months now and have not been delivering, while hundreds of people in our community are living homeless right now. So we need to act fast and act with a sense of empathy and urgency on this issue, because it's dangerous for people that are living outside, especially as the colder weather is getting closer. And we have the resources, we just need the political will to put these resources to good use and to get people homes, and all those other things that I mentioned too, like drug treatment and therapy and mental health services, and whatever else people are needing to be able to live a dignified life in Missoula and have shelter and have food and water and their basic needs met. So we need to act fast, and we need to put these COVID relief funds to good use to work on this issue now, and then we just need to build more models of those wraparound services in the future.
Absolutely. And, speaking of acting fast, that kind of brings me to my next question for you. Climate change is an issue that, we talk about at the national level all the time, and it may be not something that people think about that can be handled on a local level. But I know that you specifically have said that you want to try to address that in the local level. So here in Missoula, like from a city's perspective, what can the city council do to address climate change? And what would you like to see done if you were elected?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that the city needs to do, cities all across the country need to mandate higher energy efficiency standards and electrified heating systems on all future buildings. Right now, whenever we're building new building infrastructure, we're building gas heating on most buildings. And to get us to 100% renewable energy fast enough to avoid major climate tipping points, we're going to need to electrify basically our whole lives, and then make sure that that electricity is coming through renewable energy. So an easy way that the city could help with that is to uh, basically ban gas heating systems on future buildings, and mandate electrified heating instead with higher energy efficiency. So that's a big thing I've been pushing here in Missoula. We also want to incentivize people to be able to walk and bike to their daily activities. So when we're zoning the neighborhoods in town, I'm proposing that we zone to allow for like grocery stores, daycare, schools, basic necessities within the neighborhoods of where people are living. Within residential neighborhoods, we have those basic amenities. That way people are able to walk and bike and commute even by car much shorter. So, and we're also going to be trying to work to expand our bus system and electrify those buses to all parts of Missoula, along with connecting our bicycle and pedestrian paths for safe walking and biking. And in Missoula here, it's already one of the best towns in the country to be able to walk and bike, but there's a lot that we're still missing. And addressing our transportation and heating systems is the best way that city council could help work to stop the climate crisis.
Absolutely. And it feels like an issue that, again, doesn't get talked enough about on the local level. So I do appreciate you talking about that. Another issue that I've heard you speak about, especially on the campaign trail, is about community safety.
Mhm.
I think one of the things in particular you were talking about, I think the mobile crisis unit that has now been
Mhm.
established here in Missoula. What exactly do you think can be done to make improvements to our community safety? Like, what kind of plans should be implemented, do you believe?
Yeah. Well, to build off of the mobile health crisis response team, we need to fully fund it to make it 20 to make sure that they can respond to mental health crises, or to respond to other things that police aren't suitable to respond to 24/7, to make sure that they can reach people all the times of the day. And we need to have places for those people to go to afterwards. Like we need to have drop-in mental health crisis stabilization centers where people that are experiencing a mental health crisis can drop in there and receive therapy or treatment that they need. We're going to have more drug treatment centers to ensure that people that are looking for treatment have somewhere to go and are able to actually receive that treatment. So we need to just rethink our system of safety a little bit. Instead of just always punishing people for doing something that's illegal, we need to help guide those people to resources that are able to help make sure that they're able to not repeat mistakes, or able to find help that they're looking for, and so on and so forth. So, just when it comes to community safety, I'd like to just see us provide the proper resources and not just come at everything with uh, a criminal sentence, basically. So, I'd like to see us send less people to jail and send those people to somewhere that they can have resources to help with whatever issues that they're facing, not just having punishment be the go-to solution for these issues.
Right, right. And so I can appreciate that stance. And and I think we've talked about some of these issues so far. All the issues that we mentioned in the last like handful of minutes, or issues that we kind of talked about previously. But I want to ask you about a couple that we didn't get a chance to touch on the first time around. And so
Mhm.
one of which is childcare. Now, this is an issue that is a really impactful deal for a lot of people. Childcare is extremely expensive, especially for working class people. What can you do as a member of city council to help those who kind of need access, or I guess more affordable access to these services?
Yeah. Yeah, like you were saying, childcare is like one of the biggest costs for families, and often it makes it to where one of the parents, if it's a two-parent household, one of them will stay home with the children if they can't afford it, and it just makes it harder to get by. So one great example is that our old library here in Missoula was turned into a affordable childcare center where people are able to pay just $2 a day to send their children there, which is really truly affordable for people around town. But I'd like to see, when we're zoning and when we're incentivizing builders, I'd like to see child care centers built into the same building or next to like lower income houses or neighborhoods in Missoula. I'd like to see us have an office of families and child services that can connect parents with that will work with parents to find affordable childcare options and to help them find the needs that they need to have care for their child during the daytime. And basically, we just need to invest in more childcare centers and give incentives to nonprofits in town, and to keep the costs lower for lower income Missoulians, because once somebody can't afford childcare for their family, then maybe a parent has to stay home or has to leave work. And also, along with that, I'd like to see the city offer their workers paid parental leave. So when you have a child, that you are able to stay home with your kid and take care of them for that amount of time that most jobs allow, rather, and not get behind on your payment or not get behind on your paychecks and things. So yeah, we just need to create more affordable childcare centers mostly, and make sure that the city is working to support those programs.
Absolutely. And I think the one of the final questions I have here for you, it's a very Montana question, but
Yeah.
it's a question that nonetheless that people do have to ask, which is, our snowplow services. It does seem as though this has become an issue over the years about, I guess, just not having enough snowplows on the road, especially during the times where we get hit by really heavy storms. And so what exactly, can we do to improve those services and, see more snowplows on the road here in the wintertime?
Yeah, I think the snow plowing thing is something I'd like to take on because it's pretty dangerous. I mean, there's hundreds of crashes in Missoula each year especially during the winter and when the snow is all out. And currently, the snow plows will get out there early in the morning and they'll do all the main busy streets and corridors, but almost every neighborhood street in town is left behind, or they won't get to it until nighttime so we really just need to hire more snow plowers for the city, and fully fund a snow plowing program that makes sure that we get to every street, not just the busy streets, because it'll just create a safer community that way, with car crashes and so on and so forth. So really just fully funding our snow plowing services and hiring people to good union jobs for snow plowing in town. And I know Helena, the capital of Montana, just upgraded their snow plowing services in the past few years, and it's really been a huge win for the city that people are really excited about, people of all political stripes. So I think it's something that should have been done a long time ago, especially living in such a snowy city. But as Missoula grows, our snow plowing services need to grow as well. So I'd like to see that happen fast.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's a great point. As we grow, services should grow with it. So I can totally understand that. So I want to close up by saying this. I think I saw one of the graphics that you put up on your Instagram about the fact that voter turnout seems to be substantially lower in these city council elections, probably because they're in off years. People aren't thinking about it. The last city council election in 2019 had a voter turnout of 33%.
Yeah.
The city council is the legislative branch of our community. They, essentially they have complete control over the budget, how everything goes in our city. The $200 million a year, however that is spent, that is legislated by the city council. And so my final question to you is, how are you going to convince more Missoulians to come out and vote for you during this election? What is your final message to the people of our community for why they should vote for you this November?
I think Missoula is really at a crossroads of, we're such a vibrant, like, full of community events, and we have a college here, and it's just, and rivers and mountains, and it's just a beautiful place to live. And we're seeing the culture is changing as people are getting priced out of our community. So we're really at a crossroads of whether we're going to be electing the same sort of people and group of people that have been in office here for the past 2 or 3 decades, if we're going to keep electing them, or if we're going to start electing renters, working class Missoulians, and people who are bringing forward bolder policy solutions to try and turn this thing around and keep the Missoula, the place that we've all come to love. So I'm hoping that people will, be excited when they see a younger person running, or the only renter running in town, and be willing to tell their friends to vote and actually make it happen this year. But I just know that everybody really cares about this community, and if we just let this get out of control with housing, it's not going to be the same community that we all come to love. So I think these elections are more important to Missoula than the federal elections, the presidential elections. We are really going to feel the decisions of the city council on the ground here. So if you're going to vote, I think this is a really important election to vote in. And I definitely understand people who have given up on the political system or are not willing to vote, who just think it's all corrupt. I really understand that perspective. But at the same time, it's not a solution to say, oh, look at all that corruption over there. I don't want a part of that. I'm not going to vote. But at the same time, that corruption and political system is affecting all of our daily lives. It's the reason that your rent is going up. It's the reason that our rivers are polluted. And just not voting is just going to allow the powers that be to do whatever they want. So I encourage people to talk to a friend about voting, or to really consider it this time around if you haven't voted before. But yeah, only a third of registered voters voted in the last city council elections, and it only came down to 12 votes in one of the city council races. So in a town like this, every vote really does count. So, and I hope you can, get out there and vote and, make it happen. Yeah, thanks, Desmond.
Thank you. And for those who are interested in you and in your campaign, like, where can they find you at online?
Yeah, on any of the social medias, it's Carlino for Missoula, or my website is danielcarlino.com. And I'm always happy to talk to people about the race and what's going on in Missoula. I really am looking forward to helping other people run for office. We need people to step up and run for all positions of office. So please reach out to me if you're somebody that lives in Montana that would like to run yourself, or know people that want to run.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are interested, those links will be in the description of this video. So just go ahead and click into the description and you will see some of those links, as well as a link to check your voter registration, because you should make sure that you are registered to vote. I know that we talked about at the top of the episode, but just one more time, can you tell everyone when can they start voting and where can they vote here in Missoula?
So you can vote at the Missoula County Elections Office starting October 4th until November 2nd. It's a all mail-in ballot this year. So if you're registered, you'll get a ballot in the mail mid-October time. But you should really go in to check to see if you're registered, and you can go ahead and vote pretty much all of October. So early voting is definitely encouraged this year, because with the new Montana laws, they made it to where there's no drop boxes, no ballot drop boxes, and you cannot get a ballot on election day on November 2nd. So you have to vote before November 2nd, or if you got your ballot in the mail, you can still bring it in on election day. But I really encourage everybody this year, because you cannot get a ballot on election day anymore, and there's no drop boxes anymore in Montana.
All right, everyone. So go ahead and vote early if you are a Missoula resident. Thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on to the show today. I really do appreciate it. Good luck for the rest of your campaign. And again, if you are interested in Daniel's campaign, Check out the links in the description. Thanks to everyone who watched today, and we will see you in the next video. Have a good one.